What's up? Welcome back to Uzumaki Land. This is the second video of Uzumaki Land for AP Macro Beta, so let's jump right into it. So, first of all, what are the 4 types of unemployment in Uzumaki Land? And there is 4 different types of unemployment for the shinobi. The first one can be frictional, and that is just, the ninja want to change their lifestyle, maybe, times are well, there's no really need for ninjas, there's not many jobs, so they might become a chef, make some sushi, make some ramen. I don't know, but I mean, they have the materials or the weapons to repurpose into, cooking knives or whatever, kunai knives, any sort of that thing. So the second one is I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to talk about the first 3 good ones first, which are natural. So the second one is structural, and structural unemployment is whenever you have a company or something that just goes under. It's just natural. Businesses rise, businesses fall. So the ramen shop shuts down, or the sushi shop or something shuts down. The ninja academy goes out of business because there's no more ninja for some reason. Anything like that, and people just need to find new jobs. Natural. Next one that I'm gonna talk about that's good is seasonal, and this time it's summertime, and maybe a tuning, or not a tuning, but I messed that up. A jonin, not even a jonin. Maybe a genin is what I meant to say. The lowest level, low tier. They're like, you know what? I'm going to be a lifeguard this summer. Forget my training. I don't really care about being a jonin or Hokage someday. I just want to be a lifeguard this summer so I can make more money because I like eating. So they're going to seasonally. Once the summer ends, they're no longer going to be able to lifeguard because there's going to be no need. So next I'm going to talk about is the bad one, and that is cyclical. And that means Uzumaki Land is in a recession, and jobs are getting lost simply because the economy is not producing the efficient amount of resources. Something's going on, input prices maybe there's too little consumption or something. Maybe the government they're spending too much money or spending too little money. Any sort of that thing. Net exports are bad. Anything that affects the GDP is going south, and they're in a recession and jobs are being lost. So how do we calculate unemployment? Simple. Number of unemployed over the labor force times 100. I'll say that again. Number of unemployed over the labor force times 100. Simple equation. Just put it up, store it in your brain. So if you ever go to Uzumaki Land, you'll know how many people are unemployed. So which type of unemployment is actually shown in all of our models? That is the production possibility curve, the aggregate supply, aggregate demand, and the one I'm about to show you, which is the Phillips curve. The one that is actually shown as cyclical because we are seeing an unnatural one caused from recession, and what we're graphing and what we've been doing in class is seeing recession everywhere in all these models. So that's actually what we're tracking. So let me show the relationship between unemployment, and inflation. Better believe it. So said Uzumaki himself, Naruto Uzumaki. Alright, look what we got here. The short run Phillips curve and the long run Phillips curve. So, what is the trade-off? As unemployment goes to the right, which means unemployment is increasing, which would be dropping it down to here, inflation's going down, and vice versa. If there's less unemployment, there's more inflation, and the haven point right here would be right here where there's 0 unemployment and 0 inflation. And I'll explain to you how do you get there when employment goes up, inflation goes down. How does that happen? Well, it'll happen from shifting the short run Phillips curve, but we'll get to that soon. So how does aggregate demand affect shifting to Phillips curve? So let me draw it for you and talk it as I draw it. So when aggregate demand shifts to the right or shifts to the left, it only moves. It doesn't shift the short run Phillips curve, but it shifts the point on the short run Phillips curve. So, aggregate supply. Let me explain. Government spending goes up, aggregate demand shifts right. Right? We're in this inflationary gap, which means there is real GDP is going up. If you remember real GDP, price levels shifting to the right, price levels are going up. What does that tell you? Unemployment and inflation. So that would shift the point from here, and it would shift it to the left up here. Anywhere up here is what's going to happen. So let's say the vice versa. There is too little consumption, or there's no demand for consumption. Consumption is going down increasingly. Aggregate demand shifts left, right? Price levels drop now. Real GDP, however, goes down. So inflation is going to cause it to shift not up, but it's going to not shift, but move along the line, go down. there's going to be more unemployment but less inflation, so there's your general trade-off there. So now let's talk about what happens if aggregate demand is what's shifting. So net exports or something along those lines is we're increasing our net exports. That's a good thing. So what's going to happen here? When we do that, aggregate supply is going to shift to the right. Right? Real GDP is going up, price level is going down. How does that show here? Well, if something super good is happening over here, the place where something super good is happening on this one is to the haven point, so it's going to shift down. Less inflation, less employment, all good things, right? It's going to shift the short run to the left. Long run is going to stay put. Since that's the natural rate of unemployment, it doesn't really matter when the aggregate supply is shifting right now. So now let's talk about if it were to shift to the left. And net exports, we're not exporting as much. Resources are costing so much more for some reason. Uzumaki ends just going through a tough barrage. Maybe Lord Orochimaru is attacking again. Hitting them with all sorts of jutsus like that. You never know what's going to happen. So when it shifts to the left here, aggregate supply shifts to the left, we're back in this recessionary gap. And what happens when we're in a recessionary gap? It's going to shift up to the right. More unemployment and more inflation. All bad things, obviously. So, that's pretty much the gist of it. And it makes a lot of sense. So, that didn't really make sense. I shouldn't have said it makes a lot of sense. But as you can see, they all work with each other. And one sliding one way, so aggregate demand shifts to the right. GDP is going up. Price level is going down. GDP goes up, unemployment goes down. So unemployment goes down, so shift it to the left. Sorry, I was thinking too fast. So now I'm going to go over how does long-run aggregate supply affect the Phillips curve. Well, first off, what is long-run aggregate supply? And the long-run aggregate supply is where we're using resources efficiently, right? There's no increase in aggregate supply or decrease or in demand, aggregate demand, or a decrease in aggregate demand. We're just efficiently using resources. So how does that affect the long-run Phillips curve? Well, it keeps that right here, right? The natural rate of unemployment is going to stay right here at whatever it is. Let's say it's 3% or something. So what if the long-run aggregate supply shifts to the right? Well, the only way for that to happen is for the short run to continually keep going to the right, causing GDP to go to the right, which is going to cause eventually, and it's not going to be something crazy, and it might not even be uniformly, this might not even be the case if robots or some sort of automated technology, but some sort of automation takes over jobs. But the natural rate of unemployment typically would shift a little bit more to the left, maybe like 2.9% now, since we have more money. Maybe more people want to work because the economy is better, and the opposite is vice versa. If it shifts to the left, economy gets worse, we're going to have more people unemployed. The recessionary gaps are going to be easier to hit, but that's only if it's consistently moving in that direction. If it happens just a short little increments, like it shifts to the right, maybe GDP over the years has all gotten increasingly better for 50 years, doesn't really matter because the natural rate of unemployment is typically going to stay the same, so it's not really going to shift it all that much. So you really just have to think about that. So now explain the correlation between every single curve. Well, we already talked about how this relates to this, so now we just have to draw one more thing here for y'all, which is the production possibility curve. As you can see, recessionary gap is what I'm about to color here. I'm going to star the inflationary gap. Everything else lines up. The efficient use of resources, the dots, lines up here with the long-run aggregate supply, which should eventually line up with the natural rate of unemployment, right? We're hit this inflationary gap. Everything, wherever we're at, is going to be over here in the right side of here, past the long-run aggregate supply. So since we're in the inflationary gap here, GDP is going down, we're going to be somewhere over here, and we're going to be this way. It doesn't matter if this is shifting or it's just moving, but we're going to be on the left side of the graph when this is to the right side. And the opposite here, when we're on the left side, right? That means we're in a recessionary, we're over here again. And when we're in a recessionary, unemployment and inflation likely going up here. So it's either going to be shifting or it's just going to be moving along the line. More unemployment, less inflation, or maybe a combination of more for both. And that's why it's sorry you can't have it both ways. That's Uzumaki land. So I'm going to hit you with the fireball jutsu. Have a good day. Repurpose your knives. Become shinobis. Become ninjas. Become ramen chefs. This is a pretty fun video to make. A lot of Naruto references. Hope you appreciate it. Hope you had fun. Signing off.